You already know this feeling. Stand at the edge of deep, dark water, and something old in your brain goes quiet and careful. That fear is real. It is also out of date. The sharks we flinch at today are the survivors, the small, calm leftovers of something far worse. Drop back 100 million years, and the same water becomes a machine built for killing. It runs in layers. Near the surface, in the light, it only looks safe. Below that, it gets colder, blacker, and worse with every meter you sink. And some of what lived down there in the dark never left. Some of it is still there tonight. This was not a dangerous ocean. It was a nightmare with a floor you cannot see. Here is the rule this codex keeps. It only records what turned to stone. For every monster we have pulled out of the rock, a dozen worse ones dissolved without leaving a trace. We did not find the most terrifying animals that ever lived. We found the ones that happened to fossilize. What follows is a dive. You start near the surface. In water, you could almost survive. Then you go down. Each floor of the old ocean held something stranger and harder to kill than the floor above it. By the bottom, the science runs thin and the dark takes over. Stay for that part, because the deeper you go, the less anyone actually knows. Before you fall, look at the ocean you already have. Off any coast you like, the water gets colder and blacker the deeper it goes. The deep sea is around 90% of the living space on this planet, and most of it has never been mapped up close. We have mapped Mars in sharper detail than our own seafloor. The animals already down there, the anglerfish with its lure, the giant squid, the gulper eel, look like mistakes stitched together in the dark. Hold that feeling and take it back in time. The water you are dropping into belongs to the age of the marine reptiles, very roughly 250 to 66 million years ago. For most of it, there were no ice caps. Sea levels ran so high that the ocean flooded the middle of continents. A warm, shallow sea once split North America in two and covered what is now Kansas. That sounds gentle. It was the opposite. Warm, oxygen-rich shallows grow big animals fast, and big animals grow bigger things to eat them. A shallow sea is not a safe sea. It is the nursery for whatever ends up ruling the deep one. The dive itself starts working on you before any animal has to. And be clear about what you are down here. Soft, warm, slow, and loud. An animal built for the land that keeps having to return to the surface to breathe. To everything you are about to meet, that is not a person, that is a signal. Every 10 meters down adds roughly another atmosphere of pressure, the weight of the whole sky stacked on you again and again. By 1,000 meters, the water sits just a few degrees above freezing and utterly black, and it stays that way, unchanging, for miles. Anything living down there has already beaten cold, crushing weight, and total darkness just to exist. Then it still has to eat. Then something bigger has to eat it. The old documentary line is that one apex predator ruled each sea. The dive shows something worse than a single king. There was no single king. There was a stacked column of them, each one built for a darker, heavier floor than the last. And the animals we can name only reach so far down, and the record itself thins as you descend. Shallow, sunlit animals fossilize well. They die in warm mud that buries them fast. The deep ones sink into cold, crushing dark, where far less ever turns to stone. The further down we go, the fewer names we have. Not because less lived there, but because less of it survived as rock. Below the last fossil, the record simply stops. The question is not which one was deadliest. It is how far down the killing goes, and what is still waiting under the last bone we have found. You are entering that column at the top, in the light, where it feels survivable. Start in the sunlit water, the first 200 meters, where you can still see your own hands and pretend it is safe. It is not, and the first animal you meet is the proof. It reads as familiar, and that is the trap. A long shape, flippers, a jaw full of teeth, easy to file next to a crocodile and move on. Do that, and you have already misread the thing that is about to kill you. A mosasaur was not a reptile clinging to the shallows. It was a monitor lizard lineage that walked back into the sea and rebuilt itself over millions of years into a swimmer up to about 13 meters long, longer than a city bus. It gave birth in open water. It never had to come ashore. The sea was not where it hid. The sea was where it hunted, and you are in it. Then it opens its mouth, and the familiar feeling dies for good. A mosasaur carried a second set of teeth in the roof of its mouth, pterygoid teeth, angled backward. They are not for chewing, they are for holding. The moment it bites, every time you struggle, those teeth walk you further down its throat. There is no backing out of that grip. Its jaws could flex outward to swallow prey nearly whole. It did not need the deep, and it did not need to be clever. It owned the bright top of the water, which is exactly where a warm, air-breathing swimmer like you has to keep coming back every single time you need a breath. And it is not even alone up here. A leaner shadow cuts across the light. Critoxyrhina, the Jinsu shark, named for a set of kitchen knives. 7 meters of muscle, with teeth kept blade sharp and enamel smooth enough to slice instead of saw. This is tens of millions of years before Megalodon. The ocean already had a shark built to kill big animals, and it hunted the reptiles it shared the surface with. Shimada's work on bite-marked bones shows Critoxyrhina feeding on mosasaurs, not just cleaning up after them. Shimada, 1997. And there is a third shape up here, one that looks almost ordinary until it turns on you. Xiphactinus, a heavy, fanged fish up to nearly 6 meters long, with a jutting underbite and the blunt, staring face of a bulldog. It did not tear its food apart. It ran prey down and swallowed it whole, head first, still kicking. We know how that gamble ended at least once. In the Kansas chalk, a fossil hunter named George Sternberg dug out a Xiphactinus more than 4 meters long, with another fish, nearly 2 meters long, preserved whole inside its ribs. It had swallowed something almost half its own length, and the prey thrashing on the way down seems to have torn an organ loose and killed them both. The hunter died mid-meal, and the seabed kept the whole scene, predator and swallowed prey, together. A dozen more have turned up the same way, the last meal still undigested in the gut. This was an animal that would sooner die swallowing than let a meal swim off, and at least once it did. 3 apex hunters in one bright layer, each happy to eat the others. That is the friendly floor, the shallow end, and already, beneath your feet, the light is starting to fail. Sink past 200 meters and the light thins to a gray rumor overhead. This is the twilight, and the rules change with the dark. Up top, speed and teeth win. Down here, the water is heavy and dim, and the hunters get heavier and quieter to match it. The pliosaur is why you do not stop swimming. Picture a short-necked plesiosaur built like a submarine, with a crocodile's head bolted onto the front, some over 10 meters long, carrying a skull 2 meters on its own. One Arctic giant, nicknamed Predator X when it was first dug out of the rock, was estimated near 12 meters. Knutson et al., 2012. It looks slow. The skull tells you it was not. A bite like that may have driven force in the range of tens of thousands of newtons, among the hardest estimated for any marine predator that ever lived. It did not slash and wait for you to bleed out. It clamped and it crushed in one motion, and it hunted animals its own size, the very things that were apex predators anywhere else. It ate other plesiosaurs. It ate the big-eyed hunters we are about to meet, and the bite marks it left in their bones are part of how we know it was there at all. In the twilight, Being big stopped being armor. It only meant you were worth the effort of the bite. And something down here was always big enough to make it. Then something rises to meet you, and the first thing you see is the eye. These are the deep-diving ichthyosaurs. Ophthalmosaurus, the name simply means eye lizard, had eyes the size of saucers. Its giant cousin, Temnodontosaurus, grew the largest eyes of any animal known to have lived, around 25 centimeters across. That is wider than a dinner plate, each one ringed by a plate of bone to hold its shape against the pressure. And these were not fish. They were air breathers that never went back to land. They gave birth in the open water. The pups delivered tail first so they would not drown before they could reach the surface for a first breath. To hunt this deep, one of them had to fill its lungs, leave the light behind, and bet it could climb back before it ran out of air. It is easy to shrug at big eyes. Do not. An eye that size is expensive to grow and fragile to keep, and an animal only pays that price for one reason: to catch the last few grains of light in water that is nearly black, to see you and hunt you in a darkness deeper than any submarine willingly goes. The eye is proof the killing did not stop where the light did. It just followed the prey down. Below the twilight there is no light at all, only pressure, cold, and the animals strange enough to make a living where nothing should. This is the floor where the science thins out, and where the old ocean stops looking like anything you have a word for. Take the animal that broke the people trying to draw it. Helicoprion left behind a perfect spiral of teeth, a buzzsaw whorl of well over 100 of them, coiled tight like a fossil shell. It was not even a true shark. It sat on an older branch, closer to the ratfish, and for nearly a century, nobody could work out where on the body the spiral went. They pinned it to the snout. They pinned it to the tail. They hung it off the back fin. Every version was wrong. Only in 2013 did a CT scan of a fossil from Idaho settle it. The whorl sat inside the lower jaw, a living circular saw that rolled prey inward and fed it back into the throat. Tapanilla et al., 2013. We shared this planet's oceans with the thing and could not even draw it right until a decade ago. That is how thin our grip on the deep past really is. And this is the part most of these videos skip. The scariest thing on the whole dive is not any single animal. It is the sampling. Every creature you have met is one that happened to fossilize. The right body, in the right mud, at the right instant. The soft ones, the deep ones, the ones that sank and rotted, left nothing at all. You are not looking at the worst the ocean ever built. You are looking at the small fraction the rock bothered to keep. And then, once, the dark handed one back. In 1938, a museum curator named Marjorie Courtenay Latimer pulled a heavy, steel blue fish out of a South African fishing catch, its fins moving on fleshy stubs like the beginnings of legs. It was a coelacanth, a lineage everyone was certain had died out with the dinosaurs, 66 million years gone. It had not died out. It had just been living too deep, off the drop of a reef, for anyone to notice. It took 14 more years to catch a second one. Its relatives were hunting in the dark before the first flower on Earth ever opened. And it is still down there tonight, in the same black water, doing the exact same thing. We did not bring it back. We only finally looked deep enough to see it had never left. Come back up, past the coelacanth in its black water, past the great eye built for a night that never ends, past the crushing bite waiting in the twilight, past the shark and the reptile trading pieces of each other in the light. Feel the pressure ease off your chest, floor by floor, until the water goes blue again, then bright. Break the surface. From up here it looks calm, warm, even. That calm is the lie the whole dive was built to expose. The ocean is not safe. It is between tenants. For most of the last 250 million years, the water you swim in on a summer afternoon belonged to something else. Something that would have read you as a small, slow, warm mistake, an easy meal that wandered in from the land. The gentle sea you were handed is not the normal state of things. It is a narrow gap in a very long, very violent record. A quiet window, and nothing in the rock promises the window stays open. Lay out the whole history of the sea, end to end, and almost all of it is a killing floor. The sliver where a warm-blooded animal can wade in at a beach and walk back out again is so thin you could miss it. We were born inside that sliver, and we mistook it for the way the ocean has always been. Here is the part to sit with, now that you are back in the light. Every animal you just met, you met because it turned to stone. The mosasaur, the Jinsu shark, the crushing bite, the great eye, the buzzsaw jaw, every one of them is a survivor of a strange kind. Not a survivor of extinction, a survivor of the record. They are the handful the rock happened to keep. For each of them, a dozen worse animals sank into the dark and dissolved without leaving a single bone behind. No skull, no tooth, no trace. Nothing for anyone to ever pull out of a drawer and sit with what that means. The animals in this dive are the ones that were, in a sense, considerate to the geology. Shallow enough, bony enough, dying in the right mud to leave a fossil. The true monsters of the deep, the soft, the deep-dwelling, the genuinely strange, are exactly the kind the rock is worst at keeping. We built our whole picture of the ancient ocean out of its most cooperative victims. We did not find the most terrifying animals that ever lived. We found the ones that happened to turn to stone. The real bottom of this dive was never a depth. It is the edge of what the rock chose to remember. Everything past that edge, every hunter too soft, too deep, or too unlucky to fossilize, is still down there, still unaccounted for, in water we have barely begun to read. The old ocean kept its worst in the dark. We only ever got the ones it let go of. The dive has a floor. The record does not. For every animal you just met, we at least had the bones to hold. Next, the codex opens on the one that barely left any, a marine reptile from the very dawn of this story, an animal we think was longer than a blue whale, maybe the largest ever to swim. And we are reading that whole claim off 2 fossil jawbones, 2 pieces from 2 different animals picked up years apart on the Somerset coast. How do you measure a monster when the rock kept only a corner of it? And how sure can anyone be it was the biggest, when the biggest ones may be exactly the kind the dark never gave back? The question you started with still stands. We only ever meet the ones that turn to stone. Tell me, what do you think is still down there, in the part of the old ocean the rock never kept?